A woman pays a fortune for a villa only to discover it is a house of notorious evil. A staircase through the cellar leads straight down to a hell teeming with the dead. What makes it all the more terrifying is that this film is based on a true story. A woman named Lisa moved her family into their new home. Her daughter May walked in and noticed several strange paintings hanging on the walls. Lisa told her they came with the house and would be dealt with eventually. As the family explored the rooms, May happened to spot a door at the end of a hallway. Her father, a big bearded man the kids called Big Beard, said it led to the cellar. Curiosity got the better of them, and they went in. It was dark and grimy, with nothing much to see, so they turned to leave. May lingered for one last look, and just as she moved to follow the others, the door swung shut on its own. Big Beard rushed over and pulled at it. It wouldn't budge. May, trapped alone in the dark, was terrified she could feel something in the cellar moving toward her. At the last moment, Lisa spotted a key hanging on the door. Big Beard grabbed it and got the door open. May stormed upstairs in a fury, convinced the whole thing was her parents playing a prank. A few minutes later, Lisa came to find her. She needed May to watch her little brother Shuai that evening. The company had an important meeting that couldn't be missed. May reluctantly agreed. That night, while May was on the phone with a friend, the door behind her opened by itself. Before she could react, a monster lurched out, then dissolved into her little brother Shuai cackling under a mask. She demanded to know where he'd found it. He said he'd dug it up in a storage room. While they were talking, Shuai spotted something else in there, an old, dust-covered phonograph. May hauled it out to see if it still worked. After some fiddling, it crackled to life. A man's voice emerged, reciting mathematical symbols in a slow monotone, then beginning to count upward from 1. May found it unsettling rather than interesting and switched it off. Once Shuai was asleep, May settled in front of the television alone. A strange wind rose from the cellar. One by one, the lights in the house began to go out. The television cut off. When the last light died, the house was swallowed by darkness. May called her mother in a panic. Lisa guessed a fuse had blown and asked her to go down to the cellar and check the breaker. After what had happened earlier that day, May refused outright. Then Lisa reminded her that Shuai was upstairs asleep and needed her. May relented. To keep her daughter calm, Lisa stayed on the phone. Standing at the top of the cellar stairs, staring down into the black, May still couldn't make herself move. Lisa offered a way through. There were 10 steps. Count each one as you go down. May did as she was told. She made it to the 9th step. On the 10th, she closed her eyes and stepped down. Lisa heard May count 10 and assumed she had reached the bottom safely. Then she heard May's voice again, still counting, still going. Lisa understood immediately that something had gone wrong. She and her husband raced home and went straight to the cellar. May was not there. They had no choice but to call the police. A search of the grounds turned up nothing. Big Beard suggested May had simply run away. Lisa felt certain it was something else entirely. She put up missing person flyers around the neighborhood. Shortly after, the police chief called. They had reviewed all available security footage from the area and found nothing. When Lisa asked him to inspect the house, he declined, citing the lack of an official report. Back home, Lisa sat down with Shuai and asked him what the two of them had been doing before May disappeared. He mentioned the phonograph. Lisa looked it over and found nothing obviously out of the ordinary. She told him to go play. Then she pulled up May's social media accounts. She discovered that May had gotten a tattoo without her knowledge. With the police offering nothing, Lisa took a UV flashlight and went down to the cellar herself. Every step of the staircase had a number carved into it. The lowest step bore a string of symbols. She couldn't read an equation of some kind. Strange, she thought. She pressed on and switched on the UV light. The entire wall was covered in skull-shaped markings. A professional inspection followed. The police chief informed them that the markings were just a form of old paint. He asked about the history of the house. Big Beard explained they had purchased it at auction. The seller had been an elderly woman who needed to fund her place in a care home. No leads emerged. The police chief left. The next morning, Big Beard woke to find the bed empty. He found Lisa in the hallway, staring up at a symbol above one of the doors, an unusual, angular mark she had never noticed before. She checked every door in the house. Each one had the same type of symbol, each slightly different. She showed him the equation from the cellar wall and told him she was certain it was connected to May's disappearance. Big Beard remained unconvinced. May had run away, plain and simple. Not long after, Lisa called the auction house to ask about the previous owner. She was told the house had originally belonged to a scholar. The woman who sold it to them was his daughter. Lisa asked for the daughter's address. They didn't have it on hand but promised to look into it. The equation continued to trouble her. She photographed every symbol in the house and sent the images to a colleague, asking if they corresponded to any known language or script. As she was about to head home, her colleague caught up with her. The symbols were Hebrew. The colleague explained individually meaningless, but assembled together they spelled the name of a mythological creature, Leviathan. Lisa researched the creature when she got back but hit a dead end. Stumped, she found herself staring at the phonograph. The moment she turned it on, the abacus in Shuai's room began moving on its own. The wardrobe behind it swung open. As the phonograph started counting, Shuai began counting along and drifted, as though sleepwalking, toward the wardrobe. Lisa heard her son's voice and ran upstairs in time to call out to him. He stopped. When she asked what he had been doing, he had no memory of it at all. On her way out of the room, Lisa paused at the portrait on the wall. In its corner was a name. The figure in the painting was making a gesture she couldn't place, deliberate, ritualistic. She looked up the name on her laptop. The man in the portrait was the house's original owner. She was still reading when the same cold wind rose from the cellar again. As before, the lights began to die one by one. Then she heard Shuai calling for her from below. She found the cellar door locked, the key gone from its hook. She pressed her face to the door's small opening and was met by Shuai and I staring back at her. Before she could react, Shuai called her name again from behind her. He was in the game room, he said, and must have fallen asleep there. A moment later the cellar door opened on its own, and the power returned. Lisa moved toward the cellar to investigate, looked down, and saw the key hanging on the door. She hung it in the lock and went in alone. The staircase appeared to have no bottom. She had barely started her descent when the door shut behind her. As she turned to try it, a dark shape slid past at the edge of her vision. She went to look and dropped her phone into the cellar. Footsteps sounded in the darkness below. She called up to Shuai to bring the key, but he couldn't reach it. Big Beard arrived just in time and got the door open. When he asked what had happened, Lisa told him she had been trapped and that she was sure something was down there. She mentioned the phone. Big Beard didn't believe her. He went down himself, ostensibly to retrieve the phone, and found nothing but a clump of animal fur. A shadow flickered at the corner of his eye. He told himself it was his imagination and came back upstairs. The following day, Lisa brought the equation to a mathematics professor. He studied it carefully and asked where it had come from. When she told him the original owner's name, John, the professor went rigid. John had also been a professor of mathematics, he explained. After his son fell gravely ill, John had vanished entirely. They turned to the equation itself. The professor believed it represented one or more dimensions, something too complex to analyze on the spot. He told Lisa to go home and wait. She had barely walked through the door when he called. The equation, he said, was an incomplete incantation. He added that a colleague in Belgium had found an identical equation in a house there and that the entire family living in that house had disappeared without a trace. Lisa told her husband everything. He dismissed it as decoration. She took him down to the cellar and showed him the equation, and relayed what the professor had said. Big Beard concluded that grief over May was clouding her mind. He picked up a hammer and struck the wall where the equation was carved. The hammer hit stone and rang like metal. Upstairs, the phonograph switched on by itself. In his room, Shuai looked up from his game and saw a figure take shape inside the wardrobe. He called out his sister's name. The figure slowly raised its head. Shuai screamed for his mother. When the couple rushed up, Shuai told them someone was in the wardrobe, someone who looked like May. Big Beard searched it and found May's mobile phone. He said nothing, but he finally understood. Lisa had been telling the truth. Working from the address the auction house had provided, Lisa tracked down the original owner's daughter. The woman was initially unwilling to speak. When Lisa told her May was missing, something shifted. The woman wrote 3 words, *Leviathan. One of the 7 princes of hell, her father, she explained, had opened a door and brought the demon into the world driven by desperation over her brother's illness. Lisa asked whether May was still in the cellar. The woman corrected her, it was not just the cellar. The entire house was a gateway between hell and the living world. Meanwhile, Big Beard had been working at the symbols. He arranged the triangles hidden beneath the markings into the shape of a pentagram and showed Lisa when she got home. He also shared another finding. The creature they had identified as the sea god Leviathan was a misdirection. The true entity was a demon called Baphomet, and Baphomet's role in hell was that of a gatekeeper. At that moment, Shuai's drone lurched out of his control and steered itself toward the cellar. He followed it down. Upstairs, Lisa picked up the phonograph. She was now certain it was connected to May's disappearance. As she turned it on, Shuai lost consciousness below. Then, unlike before, he came back. He had barely picked up the drone when he turned and found a demon standing nearby, watching him. A cold wind rushed upward and hit Lisa above. Both parents felt simultaneously that something had happened to Shuai. They searched the house from top to bottom. Nothing. Then Lisa caught the faint sound of her son's voice counting. They followed it and found Shuai walking toward the cellar entrance in a daze, face drained of color. Lisa had her husband get him some water while she pressed a hand to his forehead. He was burning up. When she moved to help him take off his shirt, she found a pentagram branded into his chest. Before she could speak, Shuai began counting again, but this time counting down. Lisa ran to find Big Beard. He was doing the same thing, the same countdown falling from his lips in a flat voice. When the count reached 0, he said simply, "He's here." Heavy footsteps began climbing from the cellar. Lisa dove under the table. A demon emerged from the cellar entrance and moved through the room. Then the footsteps stopped. She began to rise and found it directly in front of her. She ran into the cellar. The stairs went down and down with no end in sight. Her flashlight beam fell on steps that stretched impossibly far below her, terminating in a room at the bottom. She passed through it into a long tunnel. When she came out the other side, she found millions of people moving in a slow procession, every one of them counting, whispering numbers in an unbroken murmur. The scale of it crushed her. Finding May among them was impossible. She was on the verge of giving up when she caught sight of a tattoo. She pushed through the crowd. It was May, but May was not present. Her eyes were vacant, her lips still moving with the count. Lisa grabbed her and pulled her away. They made it back to the cellar and were about to shut the door when the demon appeared. Lisa swung the flashlight at it in a desperate blow enough to drive it back, but the flashlight clattered away into the dark outside the door. When they reached the top, everyone in the house came back to themselves, clear-headed, alert. Lisa told the family to gather what they needed. They were leaving. She looked down as she stepped toward the front door and saw the flashlight lying at her feet. She stopped, looked at it. Then, with a hand that was not quite steady, she opened the front door. She had never left hell at all.